Imagine this. You wake up one morning and check your phone. There's a message from someone you haven't heard from in months. Hey, are you okay? You disappeared. You stare at it for a second, maybe longer than a second. Because the truth is, you didn't just disappear. You cut them off. Not just them, a few others too. Maybe a friend group, maybe a partner, maybe even family. And if you've ever done this or had it done to you, you probably know how confusing it can feel. From the outside, people say things like, they're cold, they're dramatic, they're running away from their problems. But psychology paints a much more interesting picture, because people who cut everyone off aren't always heartless. Sometimes they're overwhelmed, sometimes they're protecting themselves, and sometimes they're doing something their brain believes is the only way to survive emotionally. So today, let's talk about the psychology of people who cut everyone off. Not the stereotype, the real reasons. And once you understand them, you might see this behavior very differently. First, let's start with a simple truth about the human brain. Your brain hates emotional chaos, not in a poetic way, in a literal neurological way. When relationships become unpredictable, arguments, mixed signals, emotional ups and downs, your brain's threat system lights up. The same part that reacts to danger. To your brain, social rejection or conflict can feel almost like physical pain. Neuroscientists have actually found that the brain regions involved in physical pain overlap with the ones activated during social rejection. So imagine living in an environment where every interaction feels tense. You're constantly analyzing messages, reading tone, wondering if someone's upset. Eventually, your brain starts asking a question. What if the easiest way to stop the pain is to remove the people causing it? And just like that, cutting people off starts to feel less like cruelty and more like relief. For some people, distance becomes emotional oxygen. But here's where it gets even more interesting. There are actually different psychological types of people who cut others off, and they don't all do it for the same reason. One of the most common types is what psychologists call the overwhelmed empath. This is someone who feels everything intensely. When people around them are stressed, angry, sad, or chaotic, they absorb it like a sponge. At first, they try to help. They listen. They support. They try to fix problems. But over time, something happens. They start feeling emotionally drained. Imagine carrying a backpack filled with everyone else's problems. At first, it feels manageable, then heavier, until one day you realize you're exhausted. And the only way your brain knows how to drop the weight is to drop the people connected to it. So they disappear, not because they hate you, but because their emotional bandwidth is completely maxed out. Then there's another type, the emotional shutdown type. These are people who grew up learning that emotions weren't safe. Maybe they had parents who were unpredictable. Maybe conflict always turned explosive. Maybe expressing feelings led to rejection or punishment. So their brain developed a protective rule. Connection is dangerous, but humans still crave connection. So these people build relationships anyway. And things might go well for a while, but the moment emotional tension starts rising, their brain flips a switch. Shut it down, withdraw, disconnect. Psychologists often link this pattern to avoidant attachment, and from the outside it can look incredibly confusing. One moment someone is close, warm, and engaged. The next moment, they're gone. No explanation, no closure. But internally it's not random. Their brain is trying to prevent emotional vulnerability before it gets too painful. Then there's the third type, the self-reinvention type. And this one is fascinating. Some people cut everyone off, not because they're overwhelmed, but because they're changing. Think about how many relationships in life are built around old versions of ourselves. The version of you in high school, the version of you in your early 20s, the version of you when you were insecure, struggling, or trying to fit in. Now imagine you start evolving. Your values shift, your priorities change. Suddenly conversations that once felt natural feel draining. You notice patterns you didn't notice before. Negativity, competition, judgment. And your brain starts realizing something uncomfortable. Some of my relationships belong to the old me. So people create distance, sometimes slowly, sometimes abruptly. It's not always handled gracefully, but psychologically, it can be part of identity development. Almost like pruning branches, so a tree can grow in a new direction. But here's the twist most people don't talk about. Cutting everyone off doesn't always solve the underlying problem. Because while distance can remove external stress, it doesn't remove internal patterns. If someone struggles with trust, emotional regulation, or vulnerability, those patterns usually follow them into new relationships. Think of it like moving houses to escape a leaky roof. You might get temporary relief. But if the real issue is the way the roof was built, eventually the problem appears again. That's why some people repeat this cycle multiple times in life. New friendships, new circles. Then eventually, another wave of cutting people off. It becomes a reset button. And resets can feel powerful. But growth usually comes from understanding the patterns behind them. Now, if you've ever been on the receiving end of this, someone suddenly cutting you off, it can feel incredibly painful. Your brain starts searching for explanations. What did I do? Was I not good enough? Did they ever care? But here's something important to understand. Often, it's not about you, it's about the emotional coping strategy inside the other person. Their brain found a way to reduce stress quickly, and unfortunately, that way involved disappearing. It doesn't always mean the relationship was fake. Sometimes it means they didn't know how to repair conflict, or set boundaries, or communicate what they were feeling. Because here's the healthy alternative most psychologists talk about. Boundaries instead of disappearances. Boundaries are like emotional fences. They say, I care about you, but this behavior doesn't work for me. I need space, but I'm not abandoning the relationship. I can stay connected without losing myself. The problem is, boundaries are emotionally harder. They require confrontation, communication, discomfort, and many people were never taught how to do that growing up. So their brain reaches for the simpler solution: silence, distance, cutting ties. But here's where the story takes a hopeful turn. Because the same people who cut everyone off are often the same people capable of deep, meaningful relationships once they understand themselves better. Why? Because many of them are incredibly self-aware. They notice emotional dynamics, they feel things deeply, they reflect. The challenge isn't caring too little, it's often caring too much without the tools to manage it. So if you're someone who has cut people off in the past, there's a powerful question worth asking yourself. Not what's wrong with me, but something much more useful. What was my brain trying to protect me from? Stress, rejection, emotional overload, loss of identity? Because once you understand the protection mechanism, you can build better strategies: communication, boundaries, selective distance instead of total disappearance. And if you're someone who has been cut off by others, there's another question worth asking. Is their silence about my worth or their coping style? Sometimes the answer changes everything. Relationships are messy. Humans are complicated. And sometimes the people who disappear aren't villains. They're people trying, imperfectly, to manage emotions they were never taught how to handle. Once you see it that way, the behavior stops looking like cruelty and starts looking like psychology. So here's something I'd love to ask you. Have you ever cut someone off completely, or had someone suddenly disappear from your life? What do you think was really happening underneath it? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy exploring the hidden psychology behind human behavior, make sure to subscribe, because the more we understand our minds, the less mysterious our lives start to feel.